Hello, 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 beautiful people. Welcome back to another episode of the USL show. As if you are not joining in live, just know that almost all of us, are looking slightly to the right or the left to try to finish watching this Charleston-Louisville match, which is just about done. But we are all just kind of tuned in over there. But welcome, people. A lot of stuff to get through today. But before we get too far, I want to thank our patrons: John Hunt, Frank Anthony, Aaron J, Christopher Cohn, Harry Austin, John Fuller, Michael Fuchs, Joshua Duder, Noah Telford, Alberto Aguilar, Jeremy Churchman, congrats on the grandkid, and Stephen Howard. Thank you guys so much for supporting us. Every single penny of this is going to be getting us out to Oakland for Oakland versus Sacramento. And we have a whole lot coming with that. But I want to get to just how some people are doing. Phil, 2 Uniteds broke your heart. Are you okay, man?
Worst possible weekend of soccer, maybe. Only thing that would have made it worse was Liverpool losing. So I guess they salvaged a point out of that. But yeah, it was not my finest weekend. Yeah, I'll save my locomotive stuff for later.
It's always how it goes. Ryan, how are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm a person who is up $8.40 today after betting Champions League and profiting 40 cents off of this Charleston match that I cashed out early. And it helped cover up a parlay I missed on the UConn-Purdue game last night because I thought Purdue was better and they let me down.
Well, I mean, John, I want to get into Ryan slowly going into the degeneracy in just a second. But John, how are you?
I'm doing well. I don't know why I got so stressed watching the end of that Louisville-Charleston game. Like, I was just on pins and needles that whole time. But yeah, I made it out of that, and I'm here to pod.
Listen, when I was at the bar, and I was like, can I get on the Louisville City Charleston Battery game? And they were like, who? And I'm like, just trust, put it on. And then, like, 3 goals in 15 minutes, and the guy beside me was like, do they normally score that much in soccer? And I'm like, these guys do. Just watch them.
If it's USL on CBS, it's going to be a banger.
Yeah, we will get into that in a moment. Ryan, can you confirm or deny that you were the person with Miami United?
No, I actually knew a person who was physically at the game, which was astounding to just hear his firsthand accounts from everything. And there was a small pitch invasion after the game that they just let people onto the field. But yeah, it was interesting just hearing him say that there were some dodgy fouls, if you will, on a few things. And we've officially made it as a country if we're betting on Miami United Open Cup games.
See, my thought was it was definitely Mike Pendleton. It was definitely him. It was one of his parlays. I just know it.
Yeah.
Walking into the casino and trying to place a 6-figure bet on a semi-pro team. Does sound like Mike for sure.
He's too busy nursing that torn Achilles to focus on betting right now.
Limping into the casino and placing a 6-figure bet.
Mike, if you see this, I want to be noted that going into this, he even said, I think playing this pickup basketball game is a bad idea. Like, he had the vision. Unfortunately, he should have saw it through because it was a bad idea.
It's a shame.
Shame. If you don't know what we're talking about, just look up Mike Pendleton. Just look up Achilles, because that entire just roughly about 5 to 6 hours is pure comedy gold. It's just really good, man.
Get better soon, Mike.
Get better soon, man. Before we get too far, I want to just go ahead and say thank you to our sponsor, Goals TV. Hey, listen, we've been on there for a while. You've been checking out. If you're on there, you've seen For the Glove of the Game, you've seen Kit Season, you've seen the main show. But we just want to just tell people, hey, this episode is brought to you by Goals TV, your ultimate destination for everything soccer, legitimately everything soccer. We're on there. A lot of other stuff on the USL is there. Guess what? The USL Championship is partnered with them. Do you know who else is also partnered with them? The Indy 11. We'll talk about them soon. And they have so much more going on over there, USL related. Also, just us. Go watch us there too. Get our numbers up, people. But listen, for our viewers, we have this pretty special announcement. When I say we, I mean John, Phil, and Ryan are finding out about this for the first time. For the listeners to this show in our partnership, we are super excited to announce that we have an exclusive kit giveaway. So if you sign up for Goals TV and you go into the comments of this show, whether it be on YouTube or on Goals TV, and put your username, you're eligible. Goals.tv. Just sign up for an account. You want to know something crazy? It's free. And if you win, it is whatever USL Championship kit of your choice.
I guess I'm getting in there and putting my name in the comments.
Yeah. I have an account. I might be trying to rig this thing for me. I'm not going to lie. I want a kit. But yeah, it is going to be you're going to be the proud owner of your favorite team's jersey, courtesy of Goals TV and the partnership with the USL show. Hey, and it's more than just a streaming platform. It's a community of passionate soccer fans united by their love of the game. Whether you're into tactical analysis, USL Championship match highlights, or compelling storytelling, Goals TV has something for absolutely everyone. So seriously, what are you waiting for? Head over for Goals TV right now. Sign up for your chance to enter a free jersey. Do it, goals.tv. And don't miss out on an incredible opportunity to show your support for your team and style. So we're just trying to see, again, how many people check it out. So go to goals.tv and follow goals.tv on Twitter, X, whatever, 280 character app. Register for the free goals.tv account and comment your name. That's it. And that is going to be selected in around 5 episodes from now. So we're looking at either next Tuesday or next Thursday. That is it. That's a week or 10 days to get in a free account and comment your name. That is so simple. I've already done it, and I'm an idiot.
Trying to
and if
land.
Taylor wins, he'll get a Memphis 901 kit.
I was gonna.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm gonna get the El Paso white kit. That's what
I was gonna
want.
say. The Haynes Beefy T kit.
Actually, we love you, Hummel. Sorry.
No, Hummel really popped up. I will say I would get my actual favorite club, Oakland Roots. I would land an Oakland Roots kit. Everyone knows that I've loved Oakland Roots since day one. They've been my club. I've been there with them for this journey, and so yeah.
I mean, I'm proud of you. Listen, they've been our number one for a while. They've been us. They've been with us. We're here. Listen, we got a lot to talk about. A whole lot to talk about. One of the teams that we said was mentioned on Goals.tv, Indy 11, and Indy 11 in Louisville City put on a show on CBS, not CBS Sports Network, not Paramount Plus, CBS, not ESPN Plus, not ESPN2. We are on the main network, and which came out today that the ratings came out, and USL had outdrawn El Tráfico, which is pretty cool, both on network television, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, and just, specific numbers, because I know people are hounds for TV ratings and attendance. 360,000 people watching the USL on national TV. That's crazy to see. That's about 150,000 more than they ever got on ESPN in a single match. That's 6 times more than they got for the title game last year on ESPN2. If you want something that projects this league forward and makes it look like a major entity, you've got the eyeballs to do that now. And I'm sure we're going to get into the production value. For me, that was a top-notch broadcast. The camera quality, the commentary is always from Mike Watson, Devin Kerr. Those drone shots of Lynn Family Stadium, everything about this game and the game itself was really a showcase of the USL.
I mean, they had more viewers of this game than Manchester City and Crystal Palace had that morning as well.
wish I
It was
did watch it.
outdrawing a Premier League match as well. But like John, you had mentioned the drone shots, and that was like the one thing I took away from just the camera quality and broadcast production that made it feel like a big event. And like when I saw that, I was like, wow, they've really pulled out all the stops for this match, and they're treating it like the big occasion that it was. And it was an absolute thriller of a game.
We saw in one match, like people could credibly criticize offside decisions because the cameras available were so good. Like we had actual cameras down in that area of the pitch to be able to say that the offside decisions were maybe questionable or something. But unlike typically where we're trying to make that call from from halfway, essentially. No, it was just we talked about it being a step up for the league. It's obvious they've set a marker out for this is what they want the product to be in the future. It's going to take time for the entire league to get up to this level and for them to invest the resources in making it like this. But it does show, like, it won't be every single game of the season by far, and we can talk about maybe production value elsewhere in the league, like on the same day being
killer Saturday for lineups is all
extremely
I'm going to say on that one.
But like if this is the vision, right? Like if this is where the USL is headed in terms of the level of professionalism and the broadcast quality and all of that, then like I think sky's the limit. And it was, there was a lot of opportunity for this to fall flat. And I think it's safe to say that USL got exactly what they wanted out of this match.
And
a soccer game happened also.
And a soccer game happened. I mean, what an exciting way to get people to watch these teams. I mean, Edwin mentioned the fact that Sacramento versus Orange County would have done a better job showing the level of play. I think that's fair. But also, the fact is, it was exciting. As much as I want to show off the quality of this league, getting people to turn into a match and be like, that was a barn burner fun, like good time, I think that's kind of more important. A couple things for me in this is think about where the two teams are located. Imagine turning on a soccer match in Indianapolis and Louisville. Like, when you think about over the season, most people who listen to this are fans of something in the English pyramid, just kind of the nature of both places speaking English, right? Most places you hear of in England and you'll say, I've heard of that city. And you look it up and it's like, well, they only had like 50,000 people there, right? And it's like, or there's only that many people living in the city. You're looking at smaller markets, much, much smaller markets than your Los Angeles's, your Chicago's, your New York's, and that you saw the passion that was there. And I think that's what's beautiful about the second division and how it stands right now is that the markets that get missed are, getting a little bit of shine, especially now on CBS. They're getting a lot of shine. One thing that of note that I know everybody noticed and thought about when they saw these ratings, the USL was unfortunately outdrawn by the American Cornhole League, which does make everybody question, hey, the USL would have definitely outdrawn the American Cornhole League if we just had Pro Rel. I know everybody was thinking it.
Wait, is there Pro Rel in Cornhole?
Probably. I mean,
probably.
The bag goes up, the bag goes down. That's Pro Rel to me.
I would say I'm pretty sure the American Cornhole League outdraws a lot of sports. Yeah. I think they may outdraw like the NHL. And that's not a joke. Like I think they get insane ratings. They're like just shy of 1 million every single time. I can't really tell though how many of those are just bars that have their TV on.
Yeah.
Like where are these Nielsen counters coming from?
I mean, 400,000 sickos tuned into the Japanese Grand Prix at 1 a.m.
Yeah, and going back to that point about market sizes, I'm lucky enough to interview Kort Jeske, who's the chief commercial officer for the USL twice now. Both times he's emphasized the value proposition when the USL went to CBS was, listen, we're in some of the bigger markets, but what we have is large fan bases in cities that you're otherwise not going to be directly drawing in with events. When you can say, listen, you're going to dominate in Louisville and Indianapolis, what is Fox doing that's going to provide that same thing? Like at a certain point, El Tráfico is great, but it's LA against LA. Everybody's seen it. There's something to be said for catering to markets that are new to this, that are more passionate about it. And the USL has done a great job of doing so. There's a reason. And listen, like those cities combined, I think the metros are almost 4 million people. Like that's still not small potatoes. So I think that we're only going to see this continue to grow as the USL establishes itself and kind of builds out that national narrative that gets somebody who is a casual fan of the Rowdies or the Spokane Velocity to say, oh, okay, this is a showcase. We're going to get a good game on national TV, and I want to tune in.
Yeah, my biggest thing is just the production value. Yeah, but like we kind of mentioned, this is also the first one, right? And immediately today we get CBS Sports Network, and I know some people were kind of mad because like their Paramount Plus thing doesn't go to it, and you have to have a special cable, whatever. That is frustrating, but also you also have to have cable to be on ESPN proper. You also have to have cable to be on ESPN2. Like I had to, in theory, fly to like Spain in order for me to watch the USL finals last year. That it wasn't great, right? And
where were you when the final was going on?
Totally not on a VPN. I was in Spain watching on YouTube.
Wow.
And
and we're asking for money to go to Oakland. I fly around. I fly private to watch the USL.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, like,
I get what you mean. The availability, like, and there are also like, if you know someone who has cable, you can probably snag their login and get access to it like that way too.
Do what I did: go to a bar,
or that too.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
No, and listen, we've got 19 more games on CBS and CBS Sports this season. Like, this is 600 game slate between League One and the Championship. You can find the workarounds because this is enough of a step up for the league monetarily and in terms of the presentation that it's a no-brainer.
For sure. Kind of moving on, speaking of Oakland,
should we talk game real quick with the Louisville Indy?
Wilson Harris pretty good at the soccer thing. Something that we can kind of get instant reactions that we kind of got tagged in by Jeremy earlier today of, hey, is Louisville's defense okay? And, this is something I had written on my notes to kind of bring up anyway. And today just kind of proves the point of Lou City's defense is better than last year. They're not as much of a revolving door as they were, but also it looks leaky and dodgy at times. And Indy took kind of advantage of that, but fortunately for Louisville, they have an offense that can run your defense off the pitch. But Charleston today was a complete counterweight, and we kind of saw that on full display in both games.
Yeah, I mean, thinking about the Charleston game in particular, that's a team that isn't going to be turned over in the midfield because Chris Allen and Aaron Malloy are that neat with the ball at their feet. So when Louisville tended to push both of their center mids upfield, the press that has been so effective so far this year kind of wasn't effective, then you're committing a ton of bodies. Nick Markanek is going to find the gaps and score the goals that ultimately ended up deciding that one. I think the Indy game was maybe a bit of luck. Like, Indy only got about one expected goal, scored 3 times. Damian Loss has been unreal, and I think that's going to be a difference maker when we get to the outcomes at the end of the season. Is there an issue for Louisville where if they don't have that first 11, which weirdly includes like Jansen Wilson and Jake Morris at the wingback spots, like, Is Amadou Dia and Aiden McFadden not defensively sound enough to work out for that team? Because that's a crazy idea.
I mean, on paper, it absolutely should be good enough. And
Yeah.
it does feel like there is just a little bit of a drop off. And it could be some maybe like teething of just like getting especially like Amadou Dia more integrated. But that being said, Louisville have had a couple of times. I mean, even in the Birmingham match, like there were a couple of really big chances for Birmingham that they didn't put away. Like, so they can be got at. The problem is that they're going to create a ton. And I think like for all of the defensive issues, there's only maybe like 3 or 4 teams in the league that are going to consistently find them out to a credible enough extent to win the game. Like, because you're still going to give up chances at the other end because the way they move the ball and the way that they press, like they're going to create a ton. So it's really just, if early season, it is just Danny Cruz is like, I'm going to score more than them more often than not. Like he might be right. Like, and it might not matter that much.
One game that I have circled on my schedule for Louisville ahead is hosting on April 27th, Hartford Athletic. It's a Hartford Athletic team who has generated 73 shots on the season this year. And in fact, it's a Hartford team that gave Louisville fits last season. In their 2 meetings, it was both draws, including one being a 0-0 meeting. I think it's a team that could be a potential banana peel on their schedule if Louisville is not careful.
And of course, 2023 Hartford was famously a very good team.
It's great. It's crazy that like they only got 18 points the whole season and 2 of them were off of Louisville. Like that's insane.
Yeah. So kind of talking about the Aiden McFadden and Dia thing, have they ever been truly defensively sound? They've always been on the pitch for the offensive side of a wingback part. I mean, that was kind of the whole reason that Memphis brought him in, which kind of crazy that he's the one that misses the penalty versus in that playoff game, and then he just goes to Louisville. That one's wild to me. But when you talk about him going to Memphis, part of the reason is because, well, Glass knew how offensively sound he was, and that Memphis team is all gas, no breaks. That they are there for the defense. Dia, he was the offensive side most of the time whenever Oscar was staying back or somebody else was staying back. I think when you're bringing up like your Jake Morris and all that kind of stuff, I think you're onto something there because they're both just wing backs with the emphasis on wing.
And I do think when Cruz at halftime brought on Elijah Winder into that midfield and had Ray Serrano start dropping back more, you had coverage for Dia in a way that wasn't there in the first half. And I mean, we watched the game, right? Like Louisville City really started taking the fight to Charleston. So I think that Cruz is learning on the fly right now that if I want to go full offense at the wingback spots, I've got to counteract that at other points in the team. It's just interesting to see that maybe some of the things we assumed about Lou City and what might be their strongest unit aren't necessarily true.
Well, unless anybody has anything else on that, let's go ahead. Let's talk about what happened in Oakland. And when we're talking about what happened in Oakland is what happened after the match for Oakland. And we're going to just kind of pull up the video first, and then we're going to just kind of discuss which the person that kind of posted this had, their caption said like the second division is just pure entertainment, which, yeah. But some stuff went down. Neville Hackshaw is like throwing punches. This is not normal soccer brawl. This is full on punches. I don't know if it's shown in here, but like bottles of beer were thrown onto the pitch. Stuff like that. Like stuff was thrown onto the pitch at the players. A lot of stuff has come out of this, and we're waiting to find out what the fallout of this is. But I have not to speculate, but the league has to, really crack down on it but also they have to figure out who exactly is involved, because if they rush it and someone was involved and they don't get called out, or other way, someone was not involved and they get called out, they are in hot water, and they've already had an issue with that in the past. So, they're just going to have to carefully tread this one.
And they haven't made any sort of statement or anything, right?
Mm-mm.
The league. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, this is a tough one, because I think it reminds me of last year. We were sort of commenting on some of the like fan interactions. I think it was Fuego, right? With like was that a mall night? And
yes.
So I think like similarly, there has to be like mitigation in terms of like there can't be straight up brawls, especially, I mean, the video is what it is, and you have to kind of like like see what the actual fallout is. There seems to be some like stomps and stuff in there, which is like genuinely dangerous, not from a like, this isn't like hey, pushing shoving type thing. Like, this is pretty bad in terms of what was going on. So yeah, they've got to figure it out. And obviously I'm sure it's not done like without provocation either. So like it'll be interesting to see how the league handles it. But I don't know about you guys, but I saw this video sort of like out of context on my retweeted onto my Twitter timeline. And you ever see a video posted and then you're like, oh wait, like, is that like, and it's someone or something, and you're like,
yeah,
wait, is that it? Like, that was how I experienced it, was like seeing a family member get in a fist fight on World Star, where I'm just like, is that Kevin? Like, or whatever, just like, and that was how it was, because it was like, the second division in the US is crazy or whatever, and I was like, is that Oakland Roots?
Ryan,
it was really weird. I was like, I'd know that pitch anywhere.
Ryan, did you get the disciplinary on that?
Yeah, so there officially on the kind of team like match recap, there were 4 red cards and 2 yellow cards dished out at the 90th plus 8th minute of stoppage time. So that was Hackshaw, Nagy, Martinez, and Herrera. So there was 2 red cards on each team for Oakland and Monterey Bay. But that's at least officially what has been kind of declared the people who are involved.
Do you think there's a world where the league says take your 2 games and that's it?
Yes. Yeah, I think that we're probably not going to see anything more.
Yeah, because that's kind of what I mean. I kind of hate to say it, but fights do kind of just happen. Like, they shouldn't, but I mean, these are 2-game suspensions. I mean, the refs got who they think was involved immediately. So that's 2 games. I mean, unless the league were to come out and say someone did something egregious besides just throw punches, which, we've seen in the past, a stomp can get someone out for the rest of the season. If that's actually what happened and not just I'm running to go try to swing on somebody, then we might be having different conversations. But that's kind of hard to prove intent versus I'm running and I have massive legs that just ran for 98 minutes.
But I think it was kind of a frustrating game all around. Like, Monterey was in control for a lot of it. Oakland sort of had a comeback in the second half. Monterey got that late winner. Like, Oakland is in a position too where they're just not getting the outcomes they want. So I think there was a lot of heat. And this is like a nascent rivalry game in this league. This is going to be something that elevates that to another level. I don't think that there's going to be more disciplinary action, but like, certainly something to keep an eye on maybe next time these teams play. And if anything flares up, it can, get bad.
I want to throw out 2 things real fast. Jonathan Como and Peter Bloom with the Oakland Roots blog. If you're not following Oakland things, follow those guys. They are keeping you up to date with literally everything. They are must follows. But Jonathan Como said that the bottles of stuff being thrown onto the beers and the bottles thrown onto the field, he said that the SG leaders are very vocal against it. And he said that he saw most of the beer throwing he saw came from like from the field level. And then Peter said that the bottles were being coming up from higher in the area towards the center, and a capo from the SG themselves tried to stop it. So it sounds like this came from randoms who had shown up in the night, just for the night, and not the actual supporters group themselves. So before anybody goes out there and says Oakland fans trashy or whatever for throwing this on there, just know that it's not the diehards that are there every single night, according to 2 or 3 very trusted sources for me. So I think that's important to note. One thing that I do want to throw out with this, and it's fights are bad. Listen to me, kids. Fights are bad. But dear God, do I have June 22nd circled. Like, I am so excited.
Yeah, it's going to be a fiery one.
Ugh. All right. But let's go ahead and move on. Just real quick, just wanted to kind of mention it. The Guardian released a pretty cool article, stuff that you've already heard before. ProRel good. Stuff that they're looking at is cheaper to go to, watch Orange County and other teams than it is just even park at an MLS stadium, that kind of stuff before. But it's a really good article written by the Guardian, so I would say check that out. It's a lot of stuff
by James Knowlton, who is very supportive of the lower leagues. Always a great read, no matter what.
Yeah. Just thought I'd throw that out there. If you didn't read it, it's been posted like everywhere, so there's that. Let's go ahead and get into some recaps. I want to open up with what might be the best game of the weekend, which was Tulsa versus Phoenix, which was just absolute chaos, absolute banger, just a great time.
This one was a really interesting game for both sides. I think we had a lot of doubts about Tulsa in particular. And then this is a team without Philip Goodrum in the lineup because of a knock that he's got, without Rashid Tete in the back line, who was considered to be a starter for this unit ahead of Bradley Bourgeois. And then Tulsa comes out and, for my taste, really controls the run of play in this game. Like, Phoenix ends up getting the 2 penalties. That turns it into a draw. But the way that Tulsa was able to narrow out and open up space for Arthur Rogers, every set piece that Justin Portillo took being absolutely incredible. And the way that Phoenix really struggled with ball progression yet again. Like, this is a team that has shown a couple of flashes offensively, but by and large, this season just can't get it done. And I think when they finally got going, Renzo Zambrano was doing an impression of Carlos Harvey, right? Like, he was getting up from the number 6 spot, interacting with Panos, interacting with Edgardo Rito to move up the pitch. So things to take away for Rising, but my bigger kind of finding from this matchup is that Tulsa feels kind of real in a way I didn't expect.
You mentioned the Goodrum absence. The Stojanovic has been sort of thrown in the deep end when he wasn't like meant to be the guy, right? Like he is, and he is showing a lot of flashes. He's got just like is missing the final touch. He gets so many good looks, particularly in the first half hour. He could have had a hat trick. And I think young striker, lots of potential there. And on a different night, this game is actually over like 20 minutes in. Because if Philip Goodrum is the one on the end of those Stojanovic chances, like it's hard to imagine him not putting some of them away, or some more away, I should say. That said, like the movement is really good. I have to give tons of props. Alex Deleuze, like no look assist for the opener, absolutely disgusting. And he was great, sort of operating in between the lines for Tulsa. I think in general, they let this one get away when maybe they shouldn't. It also showed just how dangerous Remy Cabral can be when he's feeling confident and getting in the right areas and like gets the ball at his feet. He can make things happen. One is a penalty, earns both penalties. And then by being dragged down, I will say second one, little soft for me. I don't know that it was necessarily a pen because he kind of. It's a tough one. I think it's Swayhe who gives it away, and he lingers on the shirt like a little too long and lets it pull into that like triangle shape when I feel like those sorts of holds happen quite a bit, and they're often not called. But regardless, Tulsa, I think, despite it coming back, 3-3, I think they can walk away from this one feeling pretty good. They probably should have had all 3 points, but yeah, Phoenix for me, like it's just not functioning in the way that I think it's designed to. Azakar and Rito like had trouble kind of getting involved, and as much as I think they would want to be. And Tulsa did what they wanted for large portions of the game, particularly first half. So yeah, super exciting way to kick off the weekend, though. I mean, a 3-3 on a Friday night, you can't ask for better than that.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at a Tulsa team who contributed 21 shots to this match. And even just looking at the heat map from this game, you see Phoenix had really a dearth of coverage within their own midfield in this one. But Tulsa should be walking away with their heads held high for this result. And they have a very interesting matchup against Sacramento this week and then Charleston the following week, which ironically enough, if you look back through their 2023 season, they played those two teams back to back in the early part of last season as well, which is kind of weird symmetry as compared to last season.
The 0 point special coming up for Tulsa.
Hey, they did actually draw Sacramento in that part of the back-to-back combo last season when they did play after Charleston.
Something I just kind of feel like I'll just need to mention. Emil Cuello leaves me in Surrender Cobra constantly of how did he do that and why did he do that? Like unreal.
It's
I mean, yeah.
He moves in mysterious ways.
He's kind of like the chief invisible for about 80 minutes, and then we'll score the craziest goal you've seen in your entire life guy. And I mean, I think there was a moment in the second half where he took like the dumbest shot. Oh man, like trying to catch the keeper out. I could be misremembering, but yeah, he's an experience. I love him.
I mean, it's just seared in my brain of trying to dink it down the middle on the penalty shootout. Everything else is just kind of revolving around that. So like when he scores a banger, I'm like, that's the same guy. But when he gets a straight red, I'm like, that's the same guy. Unreal. Yeah, let's go on to another really fun match, Hartford versus Miami. Honestly, my only takeaway from the match is what John posted, which is the lady just copying Mushigalina. I just want to know. Mushigalusa. Sorry, Michigalina. Mushigalusa. That one. You're
combining players.
I'm combining people. Yeah, it happens. No, like I'm obsessed with her, but also Miami showed some fight that I was not really prepared for. I mean, we've been kind of hyping up Miami, but they showed me a different kind of fight than I was prepared for. But this is also 100% a match 2023 and maybe 2022 Hartford 100% lose.
Yeah, Hartford, this had the feel, and when they saved the penalty early on, I'm thinking, no, this says 0-0, like written all over it. Hartford's going to take 40 shots, and it's somehow not going to go in. But they got around that. Like they really unsettled Miami, which teams have struggled to do. Like for all of the memes around this Miami FC side, like they are organized and they know what they are and they play like it. They frustrated Hartford for a little bit, but they weren't able to keep it up. I will say, the engine of this Hartford team is the difference for me. Like Jay Chapman and Anderson Asiadu are putting in like 7, 8 out of 10s every single match. And it's allowing that front four to do what they do because there aren't many teams in this league that would be able to play those 4 players together and not just ship goals, right? Like, it's like we need somebody to defend, and it's like Jay Chapman and Asiadu are doing so much work in covering that space, like recovering possession, winning it back, and then being that link between it, defense and attack. I think they're enabling so much of what is going on in Hartford to make it functional when you've got all those like great attacking names up top.
Yeah, Kayla, you're on mute.
Wasn't it the thing last year was that we saw Hartford just ship a bunch of goals because they had so many attacking players up there, and we're like, buy a defender, please, or someone to slow it down the defensive midfield. And they revitalize the back line and bring in one of the best holding midfielders in the league. And suddenly this team is an absolute wagon. Like the structure was needed last year. We all saw what the problem was. And then suddenly they bring in a coach that has a couple of brain cells firing. That was like, maybe we should bring in a back line and a holding midfield. And suddenly it works. Like, we saw the vision last year.
Comedy goal of the weekend, Von Kazeel booting it in off of Joey Farrell. I'm just like, this is the craziest. Like, 2 center backs kicking it off each other for an own goal is really wild. But no, I think like to your point, there's a lot of firepower in this Hartford team, but there's also a lot of sensibility about how they've been built. That being said, like, they do still give up 2 goals to Miami and make it a lot more interesting than probably what it should have been.
Yeah, I mean, you think about this game. Sorry to cut you off there. Like, Miami is a team that is so hard to break down because they've got that shapeliness, they've got that form. And so often this season, Burke has been pretty doctrinal about keeping the wingers high upfield to stretch the pitch, right? Not so much against Miami, where he let Beckford and Galena drop lower to get those touches because they're amazing dribblers. They can beat anybody with the ball at their feet. They can carve through that Miami press and really do damage. I think the difference between, like, if you're thinking about Burke teams, the midfield when his switchback teams were at their best was most often Steven Echeverria and Cam Lindley. 2 very good players, not a lot of defense. Anderson Asiadu brings you everything you could want as a number 6, but he's got some real talent with the ball at his feet. Like, he can progress the ball in a way that's important. And I think this team has maybe more legs than the switchbacks ever did, because that was always a side that you didn't trust when they got to the playoffs. So curious to see how the season develops and what becomes of this unit later on in the year.
Yeah, and Kaylor, you had mentioned like just the amount of goals this team had shipped. Over the past 2 seasons, they had conceded 136 goals, 79 from last year. I mean, John has mentioned it before that was one of the worst teams that we had ever seen. And now to start this 2024 season, they've scored in 4 consecutive games, something they only did last year. And on top of all of that, they still have 3 wins, and it's like the first time since the end of the 2022 season that they've managed to get 3 wins in a 4-game period. It's certainly been a turnaround for Hartford Athletic, who now have to go against San Antonio, Louisville, and Charleston as their next 3 games.
Unreal to turn around. Just my last thought on this, and you kind of mentioned Asiadu, having watched him for 5 years. One thing about Anderson is that you mentioned how he gets the ball, across the pitch and how he moves it up and down. In years past, it has been because you can't get the ball off him. Like, he's just one of the people that the ball is glued to his feet no matter how much traffic he goes through. Brendan Burke has unlocked a passing side of him that I never saw in Birmingham, which is disgusting to think about because he was already so good at moving the pitch, north and south. But now, you open up the east and west and the ability to pass it wherever you want. I mean, he is up there for the best holding mid, just outright best central midfielder in this league right now.
I do want to say on the Miami side, I'm starting my free Gabriel Cabral camp.
Wow.
Oh, no. That was it.
I may have
big StreamYard doesn't want you to know about him.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold Hold on.
Yeah, too hot of a
this
take.
is Antonio Nocerino is trying to keep me down about Gabriel Cabral.
He doesn't want the streets to know.
He's hacking the feed. No, I think like he is the type of player who doesn't fit into what Miami want to do in terms of how they're playing like rigidly and defensively. And when he comes on in this game, like he dictates everything. Like so much of the play goes through him, and he creates like their second goal like is all him, right? So it's just like there is such a player there, and I just wish that he was at a team that needed him in the way that he like, because he will make differences like this for Miami, and he's just in a team that can't use him the way that he needs to be used to showcase his talent.
Anthony Pulis never gave him enough minutes, and he was the piece that team was missing last season, which is probably why they have a new coach now. But like, I wish he had a better fit.
Yeah.
Just free. I'm off of my free Kudus, and now I'm on free Gabriel.
Free somebody, just in general.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Las Vegas versus San Antonio. The New Age Lights get a big result versus San Antonio, and we got a little tactics show, so let's just sit back and enjoy.
Welcome into the USL Tactics Show, where today I want to talk about the Las Vegas Lights' midfield, the way that it controlled the game against San Antonio FC this weekend. Las Vegas plays in a sort of 4-2-3-1, 4-2-4 shape, where they rely on JC Nagando, the holder, Valentin Noel, the number 8, and Coleman Gannon, who plays higher upfield as an attacking mid, but knows how to drop deeper as the nexus of control in the center of the park, and it underlies Dennis Sanchez's entire strategy. You saw the way that it impacted the game throughout the second half, especially. Note how these players are flowing offensively. Here you're seeing a still where San Antonio has 3 players in the middle, but look at the motion of Noel to cut diagonally towards the sideline, how Nagando follows him up with a run underneath. Those two have developed an instant chemistry that is constantly creating offensive chances for the Lights. Nagando is a player who, while he plays as a number 6 most often, has this slide rule through ball pass in his back pocket. There's so much technique here. And against a team like San Antonio that employed 2 defensive midfielders in this game, the Lights still were able to run rampant. Here you're going to see another example where Nagando gets the interception. You're seeing 3 Lights players, Nagando, Noel, and Gannon, stacked on top of one another, finding gaps between those 3 center players for the San Antonio FC. It's a lovely sequence yet again, indicative of how this unit has been able to find opportunities. Their defensive rotations have been pristine as well. Here you're seeing a center back, Fabian Garcia, step up, but look how Nagando gets back to put in the tackle and recover for him. The Lights are finding their shape, and because of it, they're able to deny opportunities down the middle. This is the San Antonio heat map from Saturday night, where they got nothing in the central areas of the park. Late in the game, the Lights moved into a truer 4-2-3-1, but look at the way that they use Gannon, especially on that right side, to force Mitchell Tainer to play towards the wings and not towards the center of the pitch. This is the sort of positional control that the best teams in the USL are able to exhibit. It wasn't always perfect for the Lights. They still give up some opportunities in the channel, but by limiting the danger and focusing in the areas that they would do the least damage, they were able to get that win. This is a team on the rise in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, much like John had mentioned here, one thing that really stood out to me, and this is not entirely fair of San Antonio, but like Vegas dominated. This wasn't scrappy 1-0 Vegas win. This was Vegas deserved to win 1-0. And I don't think San Antonio necessarily played that poorly. It was just Las Vegas showed the quality that they had brought in over this offseason. Sanchez has a wonderful system going right now. Like, this is a good team.
The thing that jumped off the like stat page when I was after watching this game back, and then like being like, what exactly did I just watch? And sort of like the eye test versus the stats. Luis Silva and Luke Hackinson have been like so involved for San Antonio in all of the good stuff they do going forward. They barely had a kick like between the two of them the entire game. Like, I swear to God, they barely got into attacking areas. And that is such a credit to what Vegas did. Shout out to Sean Smart, first professional goal. He won the College Cup with Clemson 3 months ago or whatever, and is now doing bits for Vegas. I think in general, how far that Vegas midfield has come in such a short amount of time. These guys literally didn't know each other 2 months ago. This is there are midfields that have played together for seasons that are not up to speed this much this early in the season. And you're right to call it Nagando, because he was just different. 4 chances created and 10 possession recoveries. That is a do everything midfielder. There is literally nothing he's not capable of.
Yeah, we don't have Nicholas Murray in the chat today, but he's somebody who's been on the Nagando hype train by and large. So dead on about that. Such an impactful player. I think on the San Antonio side, throughout the first half, they were kind of playing an off balance where Silva was playing quite deep rather than giving up field in the way he had for much of the year. Hackinson was basically playing like the winger he is by trade, and you'd have Carter Manley being this proxy right back. I don't really understand why they were going for that look. It didn't give them anything possessively, but then they clearly weren't in the mix either in the second half because Vegas took over in the middle of the field. I do think just balance-wise with that midfield, the way that you've got Noel, somebody who knows Sanchez's system from their time together with Austin too, that's paid off handsomely. The energy from the other players, unbelievable. And then add Charlie Adams in there. It's going to be hard to pick that team, but boy, do you have weapons and do you have versatility when you need to match up for whatever is coming at you in a given week. I couldn't be more bullish on everything about this team as they're figuring it out right now.
I mean, this is a Las Vegas team who has won 3 games in a row for the first time since 2022, and they have 3 consecutive clean sheet victories in that time. In fact, this win as well over San Antonio was their first win since Joker was in films in 2019. It's been a very impressive turnaround from Las Vegas here, who now gets
on the day that the Joker 2 teaser comes out, by the way.
Coincidence? I think not.
Classic Joker move. Oh, and yeah, by the way, 3-game win streak. Vegas won 3 games last season.
Oh,
that's incredible.
It's wild.
Just so kind of you mentioned it, Phil, with Clemson. We just teams that are, or universities that are pushing out talent. The amount of talent in just American professional soccer, but the USL more specifically, Clemson, Marshall, and Missouri State might be single-handedly funneling players into this league forever.
The amount State is the League One resource right now.
It's unreal how much talent Clemson. I mean, we mentioned it earlier. I mentioned it first game of the season. I didn't think that Marboy was going to be around for very long, and frankly, his match versus the FC Tulsa was another reason for that. He's ridiculous. I mean, we see Marshall everywhere around this league. Clemson's everywhere. And Missouri State, other than I think Trevor Spangenberg might be the only championship player from Missouri State, but everybody else is every single League One team has at least 1 to maybe 3 Missouri State players on their team. It's unreal that some of these universities, and I think that's one thing that even though MLS has their draft that they get the college players in through, the USL really seems to have a college to professional pipeline going now, and it's really cool to see, especially those programs that seem to have it figured out.
And kids coming out of college retain some control over destination, salary, all that sort of stuff. I'm not saying they're demanding massive wages or something like that, but maintaining that control in a non-draft situation is can be a differentiator for USL landing upper end college talent, as we saw in Phoenix.
MLS is increasingly at this level where it's hard for somebody to make that jump straight from college. And whether that's a perception thing or an absolute fact about the quality, that's an open question, because you see what some of these college players come and do immediately in the USL, and you wonder, come on, if an MLS team gave Marboy or Sean Smart a chance, they'd be contributing in a meaningful way at that level too. So, I mean, MLS's loss is the USL's gain in that way.
I mean, look at Jackson Lee. I mean, he goes and was what, LAFC's first round pick, even though they had oh my gosh, what's his name? Abraham. Oh, who he used to be with Light. Yes, Abraham Romero. Thank you. He's waiting in the wings and he should be playing. I mean, it was weird that LAFC took the anyway. Long story short,
then they signed Hugo Lloris. Yeah.
Yeah. Long story short, Jackson Lee ends up in Rhode Island to be a GK2, where he would have been GK3, 4, possibly 5 in LA. And guess what? He immediately gets playing time and plays really, really well. If you're especially looking at goalkeeper where there's only one of you on the pitch, right? You know, if all things go well, there's only one that plays the game. And you're probably going to see just more playing time, or you're going to be able to see, more professional experiences, especially on the goalkeeping side. Why would you not just go straight to USL? Hi, Nicholas. We were just talking about you.
Literally, that's so crazy.
You say it's like a Beetlejuice situation where you say JC Nagando 3 times.
That's great. Well, Nicholas gets to watch me have a nervous breakdown live on.
Yeah.
He's just in time.
Speaking of,
was the end of that result your Joker moment?
Yeah.
If you don't know what he's talking about, this is El Paso versus New Mexico. Phil had a great time, horrible time. It was
Derby the film named.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of context that I'm gonna leave out of this. From the moment, like my takeaway from a Locomotive perspective is that from the moment that you undeservedly take a 2-1 lead, like, I'm not saying they weren't in the game, but taking the lead was a tall ask given kind of the chances they had fashioned up to that point, all of that. I think from that moment on the road in a derby, like, you simply have to see that result out. And the way that they approached stoppage time, it just felt like the team had already decided that they'd done enough to win, and ignored the fact that we were going to play 11 more minutes of football, like, after that goal was scored. And so, yeah, for me, it's just one of those moments that I think they get caught up in it, in like the emotion of that moment. A handful of players are like kind of giving it the big one to the curse, like they score at that end. And it took away from two of the best, like, what could have been two of the best stories of the weekend, which is Joaquin Rivas scoring with his first touch in Locomotive colors, and just generally looking like exactly what Locomotive have sort of been lacking, I guess, like early on, in terms of someone mobile, moving between the lines, like making late runs into the box, offering a different option than what they've sort of had up to now. And Amando Moreno scoring against New Mexico United on his return to Albuquerque. So yeah, it was just, if anyone is truly interested in my reaction in the moment, we do a live stream for away games over on Seriously Locos, like Twitch and YouTube. And so you could literally, you probably could find the VOD or whatever and see what my reaction was. Cause I can guarantee you it was, stunned silence, I think, for a little while. And then, yeah, all in all, like, it wasn't the worst Locomotive performance of the season by any stretch of the imagination. And it is just a devastating result, given that they are still looking to get their first win on the board of the season. And we're now 5 full games in.
But are you okay?
Oh, I'm I'm working through it. No, we'll record Seriously Loco tomorrow evening. And that should be cathartic.
While we're on the Nicholas Murray plug topic, good little recap of the derby there as well. I mean, I think it's another game where you see the consistent issue with El Paso just can't figure out how to defend behind those wingbacks. Even when there was the shape change later on in the game, I mean, that was really what happened with both of those late goals, right? It's unfortunate to see. Credit to New Mexico for, despite the bad broadcast, which I know we hinted at up top. I mean, as somebody who's trying to watch the game for tactical things that are going on, that was probably the worst time I've had all season. I will say what Eric Quill did with those late substitutions completely changed the tenor late on. What you got from Daniel Bruce stretching the field, Jacobo Reyes coming and getting that goal pretty immediately after getting into the game. Huge stuff there. Hoping Dayon Harris is okay. He went off around halftime and you could see the limp. The way that he was stretching that with that pace on the left wing early in the game was so influential. This is a New Mexico team that's deep right now. Like, they've got a wealth of midfield options that can punish you in a lot of ways. We saw it in this game. And I mean, it was a lot of heart as well. Like, to do that at the Lab, in the rivalry, in front of your home fans, big stuff there. So interesting things both ways. Curious to see, like you mentioned, Phil, how El Paso looks as they're getting more of Rivas in the mix there, because he was awesome as a sub.
Yeah, we've been kind of crying out for Rivas. I think there was a thought or a feeling of sort of optimism in when Navarez was available. He's a loanee from FC Juarez. He performed well. The only time we had seen him up till then was in the friendly against Bravos, and he looked quite good. We were looking for a little bit of something different from what's been on offer. Miles Lyons hasn't really been as he was last year. Like, he's just had trouble getting up to speed. The system's not doing him a ton of favors either. I think in general, like, someone close to New Mexico's staff was talking about the fact that Dayon Harris versus Noah Dolenmeyer was basically circled on the tactics board of, this is how we get at them. And it worked. Like, that's how they got the opener. I also, Marco Micheletto, special shout out. He scores obviously the goal, which was the most visible sort of impact, but he was all over the place. His reinvention as a holding midfielder in New Mexico when he was a winger in MLS Next Pro last year, like, is just really wild. But he's been very, very good. And he was good again. Him and Zico Bailey were quite tidy. Not that all of it like necessarily shows on the stat sheet, but his strike for the opener, clean as you can possibly strike a ball as well. And all in all, yeah, a very rough night for anyone associated with El Paso. But I think some of the simplicity of how they can be got at is just like, they've got to figure out what the solution is there. And if the solution is Brandon Craig has to be available, that can't be it, right? Like, it's a similar conversation with Louisville, where we're like, if the solution is just always have your first 11, I've got bad news.
What? You don't?
You really sold that confusion there, Kayla. You got me for a second.
Been working on
Well,
it.
Phil, at minimum this week, you'll have the I Always Come Out on Top derby, as El Paso will be playing Oakland.
That's I'm playing both sides. That way I always come out on top.
And hey, no Neville Hackshaw.
So here's a question that I'm sure the 0.8 or 0.08% of our Swedish viewers can tell us. Was this an issue with clear out before of wingers, like wing backs? Like, is this a clear out issue, or is this
he's the viewer?
He watched like 3 times, or maybe it was 4th Lasso. He went over there and was like, man, I sure do miss those guys from the USL show. And then he came back and it's like, don't need them anymore.
Yep. Lasso and Damas would be up in their rooms together watching.
At that, I mean, that was 2022. No, that would have been us, right? Or would that have still been the Evans and like?
They stopped watching as soon as it turned over.
I mean, I've heard that a lot.
No, I like as far as how he played, it's really hard to judge Brian's time in Sweden, and this is not me trying to cop out. He had by some distance the worst squad in the Swedish top division, and they were getting absolutely fried every single week. There was a huge delta in terms of like player quality and like who was available. All that being said, I think the concern is one of the big credits that we gave Claerhaut early last year was how adaptive it seemed like his tactics were, where he would make these like subtle tweaks to different roles throughout the team and would really like really specialize like what was going on for each matchup. Ever since about halfway through last year, each match has sort of lost that sort of like tailored feel that it used to have. And it feels like he more so is like, this is the system and we are going to continue to play it. And I think in general, like it is a system that relies heavily on having mobile center backs who are able to cover a ton of space and are really good one-on-one against fast players. I don't know that I'd necessarily describe like the backline of El Paso as being that. Like they are really good center backs individually, and they're just not good at that stuff. Like Noah Dolenmeyer isolated out wide. The kid looks like just in trouble all the time. And Alfaro is a little bit more savvy, maybe is a little bit more like able to like cover some of that. Akinyode is there to bail both of them out. Like that's kind of his role. And in general, I just don't think it emphasizes the strengths of the personnel available. Like I think when you see them play in a back four, it just all starts to make more sense. And I don't know if that's just what players are used to, or if it really is just highlighting their strengths, but it just all feels a little bit wonky. And I think it's coming through obviously in terms of results, but it's also coming through in terms of the manner and the ease with which like chances are created in those wide areas.
Before we move on, can I just twist the knife just a little bit more? Just real question.
Oh, with the Sundsvall stats? You
No.
can't. I've seen these. I was like, we analyzed these. Like
yeah, everyone saw that and was like, oh no.
Yeah,
2022 Sundsvall season is not real. It can't hurt you.
My genuine question here is, how much different do you think this team looks if it has a Mark Navarro in it, and you can push Bolu up a little bit farther?
I think he solved the problem. I don't think he solves the problems in the back line.
I don't think he solves. I think Mark Navarro is he was the best player in Locomotive. He's probably the best, like technically the best player ever to play in the USL. Like, and I would like put that forward. That being said, like he wasn't able to, like he didn't paper over the cracks like by himself last year. He was trying to do a lot in that team, like come the end of the season, where he was trying to be the most creative player, the best defensive player, and like everything in between.
Well, the reason I ask is because, you know, if you allow Bolu Akinyode to be the coverage for the wing back, instead of having Bolu to be a center back, let him go out wide and cover up that space, or let him just kind of range around. Would that not at least just give them a little bit more to play with?
I personally, what I'd like to see is just like a reversion to like a 4-3-3 or something like that. I think like Bolu in the 6 allows Liam Rose and Eric Calvillo to do the things that make them like the good 8s that they are. Yeah, Diego Luna. Probably.
I mean,
Mark Navarro on his day.
Mark Navarro is a shot like in terms of just sheer technical ability, like not like I think Mark is like up there, but they are, I mean, obviously 2 insane players. And
I mean, I was going to throw out
Didier
Drogba. I was going to say maybe that Drogba guy was pretty decent, but I mean, honestly,
decent finisher, but
he's all right.
But yeah, I think and sorry for turning this into the like my Seriously Loco 2 podcast, but this is my MLS Next Pro affiliate. No, I think like in general, if they reverted to something a little bit simpler, put Bolu in the 6, still let him be that coverage, but let him link things together a little bit, give Calvillo and Rose a little bit more freedom to play as 8s. Rose can cover more space out wide, like, and a help with the fullbacks. And then in the 3, you get Moreno, Dylan, and Rivas now, or Moshabane, whoever is available. You get them into the areas where they are the most used to like making differences in the past. It just feels like the team has all the personnel to go do that. And that's the systems that players have most played in. So it just feels like when you're struggling in this system, like, why not give something like that where it just simplifies the roles a little bit? But
when Akinyode signed, I heard that the intention was, like, from people in the know, that he's going to be a center back. And I mean, I mocked it up. I thought about it a lot, and then I just kind of denied it because it doesn't make a lot of sense with the way this roster is built. Like, a lot of players who can play in central defense. He is so good in the midfield. We're seeing the consequences now.
I mean, they did it. I mean, like, Bolu played center back in Birmingham when 2 center backs got hurt.
Right.
Like, there were 2 season-ending injuries, so he played center back, and it's like El Paso saw that, and they're like, "Wait a minute, Tommy Sohn might have been cooking." Like, what? Like, hold on. Like,
and he's been good. Like, I mean, it's hard
No,
to
no doubt,
like
no doubt.
he's been good, but he's also, I feel like we're not again, it's a question of like, is the team getting the most out of the players available? And that, I think the question is decidedly, after five games and 1 point, the answer is no. Right? Like,
yeah, right.
I mean,
also, Del, I just want to, when did I make that bet? I don't think I've said that. Drink every time I say, like, no, don't do that. Don't do that.
We at the USL show do not endorse alcohol poisoning.
Like is up there way too much for me. That one's a bad one.
Electric.
Speaking of, yeah, electric. I haven't said that one after I got bullied. If Andy, who will eventually see this, wants to put together a like compilation, by all means, but that's half the show. But hey, speaking of putting up some shots and having some drinks, let's go ahead. Go to the reason why I'm wearing my Walking 90 kit today, by the way. Henny Derby is coming up. We were going to talk Richmond versus Central Valley. That was going to be our League One topic of the day. But Richmond...
We spent 25 minutes talking Locomotive.
Sure did. And that's
I was
okay.
ready to move on.
I see.
It's
Here's
a
the
weekly
issue.
session.
It is. It's fine. I mean, there's a reason why we do this, so we can learn about other people's teams, and we just happen to have one of the people for El Paso. That's just how it works. Let's talk about Richmond versus Madison, because Richmond does get their first league win of the season versus Fuego, which I think Phil and I both took Fuego to win it last week because we were betting on Chaos, and Chaos almost won. But Richmond does a good job to get 3 goals, walk away with the win, walking out with their heads held high, going against one of the best just rivalries in all of, not just, I don't want to say U.S. soccer, just all of world soccer.
Yeah, John was the only person to predict Richmond last week, so he was the only one of our pick'em pool to get the Kickers to get their win, their first win since July 2023. In that time, just to kind of show how long it's been, Mercury was able to orbit the sun 3 times. So it's been a while for Richmond fans to celebrate a win, and off the backs of that victory, they now have a very crucial rivalry game against Madison.
Dude, what?
3 Mercury years. That's crazy.
That's awesome.
That's wild. Wait, so who
We
are you
ran out
picking,
of
Ryan?
movie references. We ran out of movie references, so Ryan became an astrology boy. Like,
Would you rather I mentioned that it was when Indiana and Jones and the Dial of Destiny was last in theaters?
Underrated movie.
But
Oh, man. Yeah, so what's your pick? I missed that.
I'm picking Madison, and this one, I think Forward Madison's going to be the better side, and they'll take all 3 points here.
Phil,
I went for a draw last week, like you said, Kaylor. I went for chaos because I was convinced that Fuego were going out of the Open Cup to El Farolito, which they did. So I said that Fuego always does the funniest possible thing, which would be lose to the burrito team and then beat Richmond in the league. Like, that would be the funniest possible thing. They did not pull that off. So I'm going to go for the funniest possible outcome in the Henny Derby and go for a draw, because either way, both fan bases will be upset with me for not picking them. So yeah, I look forward to this game, though. This is one of the coolest things about American soccer that has come out has been the Henny Derby. So shout out to Madison and Richmond for putting on something truly unique in American soccer.
John?
Yeah, I mean, promising game from Richmond last time out. Like, this is a team that's shown a lot of potential in the way that they're building out. I think they were hard done by, for instance, in that Tormenta game a couple weeks ago, where they really felt like they were in control down the middle. Like, this is a game where I think they're going to struggle to replicate that. What you get in the midfield for Madison with Boyce and Murphy, some of the new players they've got in the mix, not going to be as easy for the kickers to work through. With the threat over the top you've got with Cheney, Galindrez, a resurgent Derek Gebhard who's undroppable despite the talented striker, I think Madison just has a little bit too much firepower, and they're going to get this win.
I mean, we said that Madison was the best. John and I both kind of said Madison was the best team in the league preseason, and I still believe that. Like, I am still, and it's still early on in the season that I feel like I can just rest on preseason said. But also just their back line looks so good. Shipman finally had the game that I thought he should if this team's going to be a title contender in this most recent match. He really put out a good performance, and when in doubt, Christian Cheney, like that, just in general. Also, Stephen Payne always seems to find his way in this matchup. Last time he had the game winner. Before, he's come up in big moments with good big tackles, key assists and key passes. Everything just kind of seems like it's pointing to Madison, which is probably why I should pick Richmond, but I'm taking Madison. Let's go ahead and move on to Lexington versus Spokane. Lexington, who, not to beat a dead horse here, but it's not going great in the Bluegrass State for them, and it's not just because Coach Cal is leaving. Actually, I think they're celebrating that. But Spokane looks really, really good, a lot better than I gave them credit for, and Lexington still needs to figure it out.
Yeah, is it early to say that Lexington should be finding their panic button with how the results have been going so far? I mean, this was a team who last year were only shut out 5 times, and now they've been shut out 3 times to start the season, which isn't great. I'm going to take Lexington to win this one. I think what's kind of holding me back is Spokane is still having to figure out traveling across the country with these games. They've already had to come towards the Eastern time zone twice already, losing to Greenville and losing to Charlotte. And I think I still need to see that kind of prove-it game that you can win away from home. So I'm going to take Lexington to try and take advantage of that opportunity to get a win, but I'm certainly not confident in that.
Yeah, the vibes are so bad in Lexington right now that I couldn't pick them to win. I picked Spokane. I think like basically Ryan was alluding to, I just think Spokane is a lot further down the path than I thought they would be early on in the season. They got their legs under them relatively quickly. They've obviously had those new team sort of issues, but I think in general it's been bright, and And yeah, the vibes are so bad in Lexington that I just couldn't bring myself to go that way. So I'm taking the velocity.
John?
The Spokane team is incredibly fun to watch. They're so technical in the midfield. What you get out of Fernandez and Lewis and Denton, all behind Luis Gil in the middle of that lineup, that's as technical as most championship teams you're going to see. They play with this sense of tempo that constantly forces you to get too narrow. And that's when you're playing in Camarnie Smith, who is as fast as anybody on the wing, right? Like they've got so many reads in the way that they break you down. Lexington just isn't disciplined enough to stop that right now. So going Spokane.
You asked the question, Ryan, is it too early to find the panic button? I don't think losses are the reason to find a panic button. It's how they're losing. Yeah, I would have hit it a few weeks ago, to be honest. I would have been all out panic just because I don't trust in how it's happening. Spokane is shocking me, frankly. I thought Spokane had a decently high floor, but low ceiling. I thought they were going to be looking at that 10 to 8 range, and that's about it. They look like they can be a top 3 team in League One. I am so impressed. I am taking Spokane. Let's go ahead and move on to, there's probably a name for the derby. It doesn't seem real. I don't know. The trademark Miami FC versus Tampa Bay Rowdies.
Yeah, I think with this one, it's going to be a really interesting contest. As we've mentioned on the show, that the Miami FC showed a lot of fight to come back, at least try to get back into their game against Hartford and Tampa Bay. And it still is just that kind of class team that we've known from them in the past. But to start this year with 3 draws is just kind of a different Tampa Bay that we're kind of used to. I'm going to take the Rowdies on this one just for their comparative history against the Miami FC in this rivalry, but I could see this one turning into a really interesting contest with a lot of goals.
I am waiting for Rowdies to score some goals that aren't just hoof it and it falls to someone. I think in general they haven't impressed me as much as they should in the build-up. I think like the players on the field, it should look better than it has. That being said, I think it's going to be way too much for Miami, and I think just the raw firepower of Rowdies get them through this one. But I think they've still got work to do in terms of making the build up in attack like make sense. And I give them a little bit of slack for the conditions in Rhode Island. And yeah, so all that being said, I'm taking Rowdies. I think they're going to have too much for Miami.
When Miami get looks, it tends to be they're just kind of finding Alan Gavrilanis in the right channel and things work from there. If there's anybody in the league who's going to stop that, it's going to be Aaron Guillen. So that's going to be an issue. Going the other way, like if there's a game where you just want to get lucky lumping it long against that back line, Miami's not a bad candidate for that, right? Like you're not going to beat them on the ground. Tampa Bay hasn't shown any ability to do that anyway. I think things are going to break in the Rowdies' direction to get the win, even if I'm reserving judgment on them writ large until we see Charlie Dennis in that squad.
In its current iteration, I don't think a stone glass house. I live in a glass house. It's called Birmingham Legion. I get it. But I don't think this Tampa Bay team's very good. And we've seen Miami be pretty good this year. And just going off the early fact of Miami's looked good and Tampa Bay just has not. I'm going with Miami. I don't feel confident in that for the exact reasons that John laid out, but I'm hesitantly going to the Miami on this one. Let's see what is next. Rhode Island FC versus Pitt. Just a fun storyline if Jackson Lee is still starting, if Coque Vegas is out. He's a West Virginia grad, and West Virginia and Pitt absolutely hate each other. So I just think that's funny. Maybe there's an extra bit of just oomph in there? Probably not, but I just think it's funny.
And Ryan, you are muted.
Rest in peace.
Well, it's interesting with this match for me is just that, like, has Bob Lilly ever been involved in a match where it's between his bottom of the conference team against the second bottom of the conference team, like in his career? Like, it's been probably not since the league split conferences. But like, if you're going to look at just more historical, you haven't seen a Pittsburgh Riverhounds team go 5 games without a win since the tail end of the 2022 season. And I really think this is a match that they just cannot afford to lose. But going on the road to Rhode Island is going to make it a very tricky game to go into. We just saw Charleston go into Rhode Island and walk away with a 0-0 draw. And that's what I think it's going to be here. I think it's going to be another draw.
Yeah, I went for a draw as well. Same rationale essentially. Pittsburgh looked so improved against Rowdies, and I think in general there is a lot there. A handful of the deliveries. There's probably I know that there's times that Pittsburgh's kicking themselves for not putting away one of those chances that they had in the first half. But yeah, all that being said, I think Pittsburgh, I don't think are as dire as what they were looking maybe early on. I think they're coming together, and Rhode Island is a well put together team that is in good form. So I think it's a draw.
Yeah, I mean, fun one in a lot of ways, just given that we got Dikwa and Mark Ibarra on the other side playing against their old club here. For me, the improvement we saw from Pittsburgh was like night and day over the weekend. And I mean, we've talked about it a bit or hinted at it. It was like Danny Griffin coming in at that number 6 spot. The way that he was able to keep the tempo, keep the ball, the way he allowed Robbie Mertz and Canardo Forbes to get upfield, gigantic for the way that team attacked. That said, Rhode Island feels like they've been a little bit snake bit this season. Like they've put in a ton of good performances and just aren't quite getting over the hump. I think that their brand of pressure is going to give problems to this Pittsburgh team, and I think Rhode Island's going to get the dub.
I'm not. Bob Lilly is going to Bob Lilly. Eventually, it's going to work, but kind of like what you mentioned, John, it just feels like it's happening. It's bound to go right for Rhode Island. It's bound to bounce the right way. They've created enough. They've done enough to win matches. Just hasn't happened. So. It just feels like that seems a little bit safer to me. So I'm going Rhode Island, which I do want to bring this up real fast. If Pitt doesn't figure this out, I put this question on Twitter, but I got to ask, if Pitt doesn't figure it out, does Pittsburgh give Bob Lilly the figure it out next year, man? Or do you think they move on? Because the lack of playoff success, coupled with now, them trying to be the Tampa Bay Rays and not give him money to buy the best players and just say, figure it out, dude. Like, is there a world where if this does not turn around that Bob Lilly is not in Pittsburgh next year?
No. I think you made the argument for it at the end of that question, the way that Pittsburgh is aware of the fact that they're never going to be the team that outspends everybody. They're aware that they need to build this internally and build a culture. And Bob Lilly is that culture right now. They understand that he got them to the pinnacle last season. They lost a lot of players because of those financial reasons and because players wanted to move on to different opportunities. I think he's got the leash as long as he wants to be the guy in charge there. Like, they could be at the bottom of the table 5 years running, and he has built up so much goodwill with that community, with the front office there, that he's pretty much set for life if he wants to be.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. It was just something I just kind of thought about. I mean, yeah, Nicholas says he'll be the coach there as long as he wants to be. I mean, I think that's fair. I just figured I'd throw the question out there because, I mean, because he hasn't won a playoff championship with Pittsburgh yet, which, you can debate which is more, important, a Players' Shield or a...
This is a first take line of questioning.
I mean, yeah, that's what I'm supposed to do an hour and a half into the show is to get the viewers in.
It's provocative. Get some people going.
What does that even mean?
I mean, a win this weekend would bring them up to 8th in the Eastern Conference, and if they win their next game, they're ahead of Birmingham current points total. It's still incredibly early in the season to start calling for Bob Lilly's job.
Skip.
Let's go on to the last prediction. That is San Antonio versus Orange County.
I think this is going to be a sneaky, fun game this weekend. If you look at the two games that they played last year, it came at the tail end of San Antonio's season when they were going through their debacle where they went through the end portion of the year with just one victory, I believe, in their final just 5 games. And one of those victories was a 4-0 beating of Orange County, only to 2 games later lose to Orange County on the road 1-0. I think I'm going to take San Antonio to win this one, but it's going to be a really interesting contest.
I'm going to give a quick preview of what I wrote in my recap this week for Protagonist in the Championship Hangover. Orange County is Walter White, and I am Jesse screaming, he can't keep getting away with this into the sky. So they have not lost this season. They are averaging 8 shots a game. Not shots on target, 8 shots a game. And they have taken 15 shots on target and scored 9 of them.
They're my new Monterey Bay.
They are Montereying so hard right now. And I like a lot of what this Orange County team is doing. I like a lot of the pieces, and like what they're doing simply is not sustainable offensively. Like I don't think that they can, it just simply cannot keep happening that they convert all of their shots on target in these games. While their opponents are wasteful. Like I think in general, Memphis was a perfect example of should have come away. Like they have a finishing problem in Memphis. And I think San Antonio are going to exploit those chances and get the win, because I think at some point, something's got to happen for Orange County. Or who knows, at the end of the season, we'll just be talking about another championship for Orange County, despite, converting 70% of their shots on target.
They're converting at a 29% rate right now, which is almost 10% higher than anyone else in the league. Yeah.
And that's of all of their total shot, 29% of all of their total shots. They're converting 60% of their shots on target, which is crazy. That's just, they can't, it just simply can't continue. So San Antonio in this one.
I am going to say, I think that Orange County has done things as best they can, given some of their limitations so far this year. Ethan Zibek was expected to be the guy up top. He's missed some time. They've kind of rotated their wing spots almost every time out. Ryan Dogman's been out at left back. They just got Kyle Scott in the midfield. Given the fact that so many influential players have been out of the mix, I kind of think the offense, while you're going to see some natural regression because what they're doing is unsustainable, there's also going to be a force coming the other way just because they're going to get better on pure talent terms. And I also am a huge believer in the Morton Carlson system. On the San Antonio side in this game, they're going to come out a little bit chastened after that Las Vegas loss. I think in front of that crowd, with the talent they've got, with the fact that they're still finding their feet with this system, there's just something about this game that feels big for them, and I think that they're going to end up getting this win.
That's the exact reason I took San Antonio as well, for the sheer fact that it's at home, and they kind of have to. I kind of hate for soccer matches just to kind of turn into it. It seems like they should win or they have to, but they kind of have to. And it just feels like San Antonio is going to come out with a little bit more chip on the shoulder. They kind of have to prove that they have the mentality to still be monsters. You know what I mean? it's one of those things that they just have to prove it. And yeah, I guess they just can't keep getting away with this, like a little bit of both. But that is it for the predictions for this week on here. The other 5 will be posted later by either us or Ryan, so check those out. Any final USL thoughts for you guys?
No.
I have one. Saw Ryan Martin up close with the Loudon match. Okay, first off, mad respect on wearing a white ball cap with a very nice suit jacket is insane confidence.
He was dressed like he was running for state senate, is what I'm gonna say.
State senate is crazy.
Listen, I'm gonna throw it out there now. I'm just going to say it like sneaky hot boy, like sneaky good looking guy. Like, it has to be thrown out there. I've been looking.
I cannot believe we're 95 minutes into the show.
Listen,
that's unreal.
I'm just saying.
These are the sicko hours. Like, these are the like.
It had to be thrown out there. I mean what I say. Like, I was like, whoa, I didn't realize, because most of the time.
Can we air the Kyle Adams conversation since we're in this ballpark?
Yeah, dude saw it. Like,
Killer Man, like, I owe you an apology. I wasn't familiar with your game.
Yeah, a little bit.
To Ryan Martin. Wasn't familiar with your.
The unfortunate part about it is that, like, there was a part of me after Loudon scored that. Yeah, well, after they scored that absolute banger of a goal, I was like, I'm going to totally mention to Ryan, hey man, you look better than I thought. And then it turned into 3-1. I'm like, can't drop that on him now. Like, I can't drop on him. I didn't think you were attractive until now. Like,
you were going to go with the coach of Loudon United. You thought he was hot.
Yeah, why not?
This is.
Oh my god.
Kaler's finding new ways every week to have his credential like reinvestigated.
Again, wouldn't be the first time.
Yeah, I just got to throw out Marco Micheletto is my guy in this category this year.
Ooh.
Hey,
the guy has the best hair I've ever seen in the league.
Give the ball to the Italians,
There we go. Quote Miami FC.
Watch out for Tyler Pasher's left. Listen, I need to just mention. Okay, Tyler Pasher. I love the guy. He seems like he kind of gives me the feeling that he could have killed a man once, and you know what I mean? Like, could
He's the
have.
most intense looking guy in the world.
When he took off his jersey after the game last year, and he had his own name tattooed on his back, I was like, oh, all right.
In prison. Yeah.
Could have killed a man. Might have. I don't know. He's a nice guy, as far as I know.
Canadian nice.
By the way, just the Loudon goal, the one that they scored was an absolute rocket.
Abacora?
Yes.
This kid came out like lightning when he debuted in 21 or 22. Kind of disappeared for a year or two. Back with force this year. So excited to see what he does.
I kind of mentioned it because there's a lot of Birmingham fans that were just like, if we could just defend, that would never happen. There was an off the ball run by Ryan that was just perfect. Draws 2 defenders because it has to. Kind of screens another guy, and then he goes the opposite on a trailing runner who can't stop their momentum. It's a perfect just off the ball run plus a good dribble with, I think, Phil, you mentioned it, one of the shortest swings of a kick to generate that much power. No one ever thought he could generate that much power with how little time he had.
Yeah, he barely backlifted, and then suddenly the ball was traveling 2,000 miles an hour. Like, I don't know how he possibly put that much force behind the kick when he didn't even stop to kick it. He just hit it in stride barely backlifted, caught everybody out, and put it in the postage stamp. Like, I don't know how anybody. There could have been 22 players on the field that is like for Birmingham, and that is still going in.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that was my USL thought for the week. Is Ryan Martin hot?
I literally started crying. I couldn't even handle that.
Post the Twitter poll.
I mean, hot or not? Are we? Is this?
Truly the fine content people come to the USL show for.
Yep.
This is what Goals is sponsoring. Thank you, Goals TV. Goodness. All right, final thoughts for the night. Ryan.
Yeah, I posted a Substack for the first time this past week. It was just kind of going through and doing a kind of just one sentence or stat on each game, and then one particular bet that I thought was necessarily just not one that I was taking, just one that I thought was interesting. And a few actually happened to come true over this past week. So I guess be on the lookout for another one of those articles coming up for this week.
Nice. Phil?
Yeah. If you listen to the show and you love like Ryan's way of connecting the dots on like two seemingly like unrelated things and just like finding the stats for everything, like absolutely like a fascinating read. And if you're a USL betting sicko like him, then like take a look, because he always seems to do all right on the parlays. I've got like stuff coming out on Protagonist and then Seriously Loco this week, and then I'm going to physically be in El Paso this weekend for the Phil Bakke Derby, Roots versus El Paso. So no, I'm very excited to be back in town for that. It should be a blast. Meeting up with a lot of folks I haven't seen in 4 years, so like in person. So yeah, just looking forward to that.
John?
Yeah. I just feel mentally brain dead right now. I feel like I'm just in a craze. I'm USL'd out a little bit, but boy, am I enjoying the ride of it. So yeah, I guess I'm just going to try and get some sleep, and that's my entertainment.
I was going to say, you've dropped like 3 articles since Saturday.
It's pretty constant. So.
Which kind of reminds me, I had a article that I had written, after the always blank on his name. It's Football America's the big like MLS
Salazar.
Next. Yes, thank you. Like big like MLS Next Pro bad and we hate them thing that just caused a bunch of discourse. And I had like a 5,000 word article on like MLS Next Pro is like don't disparage the kids. The kids don't deserve that. And also the talent is pretty good. And, you know, like I understand what you're saying, but like not the way to go about it. And then I was just like, this is not worth putting out there. And it's just stuck in the drafts because I don't feel like dealing with well, I guess you're just a bootlicker, huh? I just don't feel like it.
Yeah, you will be a part of a discourse that you want no part of.
Yeah, I really don't. And that's why is staying right in the drafts, and it will stay there, I think, unless I'm just having a bad day that just feels like getting in Twitter arguments, because it's just not worth it. So, I do want to kind of give a quick shout out to Counterparts with Knights Who Say Nisa. If you didn't listen to their latest and now last episode of Knights, you should. The back catalog is also really good, and I understand that this is not a Nisa show, but they've laid out the pros and cons of what Nisa was doing for a long time, and their reasoning for hanging it up. You should listen to it because it's not an easy decision. They were around for what, 4 or 5 years? And a long
something
time.
right there. Yeah.
I mean, it would be like the USL show hanging it up because the USL show couldn't, give publicity to the league anymore because of just all the crap that was going on behind the scenes. Like they they really lay down some good stuff. It's not an easy decision to end a podcast for any reason, but for the reason that they're doing it, I mean, just full support to them. And they also protagonist, like kind of like Phil's doing over there as well. Just so much good stuff. And I think Ryan is riding over there as well with Alan just a little bit. Just so much good stuff happening over there. Just check it out. Show them some love. So anything else that I'm forgetting? I don't think so. Hey, check out goals.tv. Do it. Put your username, just your username. Do it. It's free, dude. The link's in the description, or at least it will be on the podcast players. And then come to this channel. Go into the YouTube comments and just put your username. Do you want a free kit? I do. Don't let me win it. Dang it. So check that out. And even though he wasn't here tonight, thank you all so much for listening. And here's Alan's voice.
Thank you for watching another episode of the USL Show. The USL Show is now proudly part of the Protagonist Podcast family. Please go to protagonistsoccer.com to check out more work. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see everyone again next time.